I spent the weekend with my girlfriend in Maine, and we went back to the Salvation Army thrift store, and I came back with this, a computer. This is the first time I've ever seen, well, it's the second time ever that I've seen a computer for sale in a thrift store. Normally they just toss them for security reasons now. It's an eMachines T6216, my first eMachines computer ever. Probably from, I would guess, 2005 or 6. I paid $4.99 for it, and it says parts only. Parts only. Well, I looked inside it, and it's totally complete. It's got everything needed to turn on. It's even got a hard drive in it, which is really funny. But yeah, interesting computer. You know, pretty standard fare for the time. It's got a DVD-RW drive, built-in card reader. That's nice. PC World Reliability and Service Recognition, January 2005. It came with Windows XP Home Edition SP2 installed, but it's got an AMD Athlon 64, 2 GHz, single core, 160 gig IDE hard drive, half a gig of RAM, 5 USB ports, got a 56K modem installed, NVIDIA GeForce 6100 graphics on the motherboard, and it's also got a PCI Express slot, and it's got 100 megabit Ethernet. And apparently it came with AOL membership included, so you could get right on AOL right away on your dial-up modem in 2005 or 6. That's kind of weird. But yeah, this computer is very similar to my Acer Aspire E380. Athlon 64, although the Aspire has a dual-core Athlon 64 X2, where this has got the single. But otherwise, it seems like standard fare, although it looks like this one might take DDR1 RAM, whereas the E380's DDR2. Well, take a look inside. I have not tested this yet, by the way. I couldn't test it at Bridget's house because we didn't have a power cord. Her computer takes a proprietary power cord. But it's complete inside. It's got the heatsink and fan with a bit of what looks like probably cat or dog hair built up on the fan. We do have 2 PCI Express slots and 2 PCI slots, one of which is occupied by the modem. And let's see what kind of RAM we have in here. It's single DDR. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Athlon 64 with single DDR. I always assumed the Athlon 64, you know, being a 64-bit CPU, went straight to DDR2. So this is a machine that would have competed with the likes of the Cedar Mill Pentium 4. And there's your hard drive. I can't see what it is, but presumably it's the original. And your DVD-RW drive. Got a case fan. Now, if there's anything wrong with it, my guess is it would be the power supply. It's got a Best Tech power supply, which, from what I recall, are not the best. I wonder if the fan spins on it. Yes, the fan spins just fine on it. Well, frig. I mean, the thing's complete, as I say. Oh, it does have SATA on it, very nice. And a vertically mounted, whoops, not the control I meant to do. Vertically mounted clock battery, which is interesting. How do the capacitors look? This was in the era of bad capacitors. The capacitors look good. They look good. And I think this is an MSI motherboard. First of all, look at the red color of this motherboard. It's rad. But given that it says MS7207, I'm thinking this might be an MSI motherboard. Oh, over here it says K8NGM2. I have no clue. My guess would be this is an MSI motherboard. I would not be surprised. Can I see any capacitors inside the power supply? I see a little one that looks okay. I see a bigger one that looks okay. What few capacitors I see look okay. We're going to find out. I'm going to hook this thing up, plug it in, and we'll see what we get for a $5 parts only computer. I'm pretty excited. Alright, I've got keyboard and mouse hooked up, my Sony Trinitron monitor. Only thing I haven't done is plug in power. So let's do that and see what happens. And provided it doesn't blow up, we'll turn it on and see what happens. Okay. Hit the power switch. Turns on. Computer monitor turned on, the fan slowed down. Are we gonna get video? Monitor takes a while to... Oh my goodness! Parts only, my sterile left nut. Holy crap. Booting rate of parts only. They either just didn't have the ambition to test it, or they wanted to label it that way to deter anybody who might buy it to try and resell it or something. That is working just fine. It's nice and quiet, no rattling fans. Look at this! There's nothing wrong with this. Mouse moves. Hard drive sounds just fine. What the heck? That's awesome! $5 Athlon 64 machine. That is sweet. Sweet as. That's exactly what I expected to happen. I expected this thing to just turn right on and have zero problems. I figured at worst maybe the power supply was dead. Or maybe there was just some sort of BIOS beep code because the memory had a bad connection or something. Nope, just turns right the frig on. And it is slowly coming to life. And this will of course be wiped clean. The only thing I like to do if I get a computer with someone else's life still present on it, I just like to look at dates and see when this thing might have been last used. Well, it's taking its sweet old time starting up, so I'm going to pause the video and we'll come back when we're at the desktop. Oh, never mind. Well, it's about an hour later. This thing is so mercilessly slow, but here's what we're left with after it's all started up. AOL Instant Messenger with somebody's screen name already put into it. Whatever CA Security Center is, that's expired. Adobe Flash Player wants to update. Belkin wireless networking utility. This thing doesn't have any wireless networking, but whoever owned this must have used it with a USB wireless dongle or something. This computer appears to have been used by a high school age girl, and it was last used in 2010. It's got the usual high school girl computer stuff. It's got some pictures on it, it's got some school reports on it. Microsoft Office 2003 is installed. It's got a really early version of Google Chrome installed. And it's actually asking, Windows is actually prompting to install updates, probably because I do have this hooked up to the internet. But that's all I'm going to look at with this. This thing will be wiped clean and reinstalled. It's reporting only 384 megs of RAM. The onboard NVIDIA graphics must be stealing 128 megs. I have 2 gigs of DDR RAM that I bought for the custom Pentium 4 machine. Well, screw that. I'm going to put that in this. This is the better machine. And I'll stick the 512 megs of this in the back in the Pentium 4 machine, along with its current 512 meg stick, so it'll have a gig of RAM. But yeah, I'm a little surprised that this doesn't take DDR2 RAM. I'm surprised that it's only DDR, but fair enough. Let's actually, I'm just gonna give it a hard shut off here. I want to see if I can get into the BIOS. I have no idea what key it would be on whatever custom firmware the motherboard has. Boot menu, BIOS settings F2, 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 F2. Oh, BIOS is dated 2005. There we go. BIOS is dated 2005. Somehow it's detected the CD-ROM drive, but not the hard drive. That's interesting. It also says there's a floppy drive. No floppy drive exists. I don't think so anyway. This little door pops up and you get microphone and headphone ports. That's quite nice. Yeah, does this thing even have facilities to add a floppy? I don't think it does. No, oh yeah, there is. There's a floppy port on this, but there's no bay to add a floppy drive unless you knock out this 5 1/4 inch bay and stick a floppy in there with an adapter. But there is no floppy drive in this, so I'm just going to say disabled. 3200 plus, which means AMD considered this CPU equivalent to a 3.2 Pentium 4. Can we get hardware monitor? And it's running slightly on the warm side. Oh no, the current temperature is only 35. Oh, it's running very cool. How are the voltages? 12 volts is good, 5 volts is good, 3.3 is good, and this clock battery is fine. Oh, power supply in this seems to be very healthy. It's putting out good voltage. Things are running cool. Wow, this computer's a peach. Nothing wrong with it at all. Very, very cool. Now, what I want to do is look up this motherboard and see KAN-GM2 and see if that's a standard off-the-shelf motherboard. So I did some digging, and yes, this is a standard MSI KAN-GM2 motherboard. Now the one in this computer is slightly modified. It's missing 2 of the SATA slots, or SATA ports rather. They're just not plugged in. But otherwise, it appears to be exactly the same. And I did some more looking, and I found more than one record of people taking this exact model of computer and flashing the motherboard with the standard MSI BIOS. So that's what I'm going to try right now. I've made a DOS boot floppy and plugged my USB floppy drive into this thing. I've got the BIOS update program and the new MSI, standard MSI BIOS. And I'm going to hit enter and see if this flashes. Hopefully we don't break this computer. See what happens. Because if this works and I'm able to get the standard MSI BIOS on this motherboard, that's going to unlock a lot of potential for this computer. Okay, it's erasing the old BIOS. Rip in peace. And it's writing the new BIOS. Verifying. Going through all the motions. No errors. Okay. CMOS checksum destroyed. I hope that's a good thing. And, well, that's it. We either have a new BIOS or this is the last time this computer will ever work. I'm going to hit Control-Alt-Delete and see what happens. Okay, the keyboard initialized. Oh, I got a beep. That's new. So that's good. Hopefully. Okay, so I had a bit of a crisis, but I was able to avert it. When I restarted the computer after updating the BIOS, I had no video. I heard a post beep, but I had no video, and also the fans were running at top speed, and I thought, oh no, I just got this computer perfect working, and I've borked it somehow, updating the BIOS. So I did some digging, and I came across other people with the same issue, and as it turns out, I indeed flashed the wrong BIOS. The BIOS I flashed is for this model of motherboard, but it's for a different revision of this model of motherboard. And what happened was that the BIOS did work. The motherboard was alive, but because the BIOS I flashed was wrong, it could not communicate with the onboard video. So what I did was I had to stick in a PCI Express video card, plug my monitor into that, and then I got video, and that was a massive relief. So I hooked up my floppy drive again. I found the correct version of the BIOS, flashed it, and now this thing's working fine. We're plugged into the onboard video and everything's working fine. The BIOS setup screen looks slightly different, but for the most part the same. I don't like the way the stock MSI BIOS handles the fans compared to the eMachines BIOS. So after I had flashed the correct BIOS, the fans were still running full speed, and that is because I had to set the smart fan setting. And basically how this motherboard with the stock BIOS does this is you set a target temperature that you want to stay below, and as long as you're below that temperature, the fans run at idle. But then if you hit that temperature, they go up to full speed until you're down 3 degrees, in my case, below that temperature. I don't like this because it's sort of an on-off. It doesn't actually vary the fan speed. It's just either idle or full speed. And well, maybe the eMachines BIOS did that too, I don't know. But something I have noticed is that it doesn't vary the case fan anymore. The eMachines BIOS did, but the case fan's now running at full speed all the time, and you can hear it a little bit. It's not too loud, nothing like the CPU fan. But now the case fan is always running at full speed. It doesn't seem to vary the case fan speed, which is too bad. But I guess that's a small price to pay. Like I said, having the stock MSI BIOS on this thing now is going to unlock a lot of potential. There's probably more CPU support. There's now probably support for overclocking with a Windows utility. And I've fully tested this and it works just fine. We'll take a look here, and you'll be able to see it now has a stockish BIOS with the MSI logo, and it just immediately starts booting into Windows. So that is a big relief there. I thought I had done this thing in for a second right after I got it. BIOS updating is the scariest thing to do on a computer, and I'm one of many people I know who have said that. So, the plans for this thing, I'm going to stick 2 gigs of RAM in it. I think I'll replace the hard drive. I've got a 160 gig SATA hard drive that I'll stick in its place. And I want to see if this thing does any good as a Minecraft server. As you know, for those of you who may watch my Minecraft live streams, or according to one ex-viewer, the things that are destroying my channel because everybody's unsubscribing because I do Minecraft live streams apparently. But anyway, if you watch the Minecraft live streams, you'll know I've struggled a bit with my computer being not quite powerful enough to play Minecraft, run a Minecraft server, and stream all at the same time while talking to my girlfriend over the internet to boot. I tried my Pentium 4 machine to run the server, and it just does not have enough power. A 3.2 gigahertz Pentium 4 does not have enough power to run a Minecraft server. At least it doesn't run my world very well at all. I bought Bridget a new computer for her birthday. It's still here. I will make a video of it. And lately I've been using that to run the Minecraft server, and it does it beautifully. And so our plan right now is once Bridget gets that computer on her birthday, she'll be the one to host the Minecraft server, and I'll connect remotely. But I may give this thing a try and see if an AMD Athlon 64 does any reasonable job of running a Minecraft server. So lots of things, lots of fun things to try on this computer. But I'm pretty interested. This thing is sort of a sleeper of sorts, you know? It's a lowly eMachines, a dumb custom faceplate, and you can't add a floppy drive, and the optical drive has this dumb custom faceplate on it. But it's boasting an MSI motherboard on the inside. Now with the standard MSI BIOS, it's unlocked a bit of potential for this motherboard. Power supply seems to be in good shape. I haven't tested the optical drive yet, but I'd be surprised if that doesn't work fine. And yeah, it should be pretty fun to tinker around with. So that's a look at the latest addition to the computer fleet, the eMachines T6216 from 2005 or 6. Yeah, newest addition to the computer fleet. And it's a timely one too, because the Dell Inspiron 530 recently died. If you read my Twitter post on that, if you follow me on Twitter, that computer gave up the ghost. I pulled it out of the closet with the intention of trying it to run the Minecraft server, and it just didn't turn on anymore. It did the beep code to mean a memory failure, but the RAM, I tested the RAM to be fine. That computer always had memory issues. It would like to have memory corruptions and stuff. I think probably the memory slots just were no good. Either there's a broken solder joint or what, I don't know, but I just tossed, I picked all the good parts out of that computer and I tossed it. And now this thing comes in, which is arguably a lot cooler. So there you go. If there's anything anything more significant to report on this computer, I'll make another video of it. But there you go. Thanks for watching. If there's any more to report on this video, on this computer, I'll do so in a future video. But until then, I'll see you guys later.